After burying my wife Eleanor, the woman I'd loved for over 40 years, I returned to our home in Austin, Texas, still numb from the grief. The funeral had been a blur of condolences and shared tears, but the pain hit hardest in the quiet aftermath. My daughter Olivia and her husband Derek arrived soon after, along with Derek's sister Amelia, who had always resented me for some old family grudge. As I stood in the living room, wiping my eyes, Amelia cornered me near the mantel. Her voice was low and sharp. "You're excluded from this family now," she said, her words cutting through the silence like a knife. I stared at her, too exhausted to argue. At 68, a Vietnam veteran with scars that ran deeper than the ones on my skin, I had just said goodbye to the love of my life. All I wanted was peace in the home we'd built together. Then Derek stepped into the kitchen, where I had gone to pour a glass of water with trembling hands. He blocked my path, his face set in determination. "This $800,000 house is a waste on a lonely old man like you," he declared. "I'm selling it. You'll go to a retirement home by morning." His tone left no room for discussion, as if he owned the place already. Olivia stood behind him, looking torn but silent, her eyes red from crying. I felt a surge of betrayal, but I held my tongue, knowing this was just the beginning. I nodded slowly at Derek's ultimatum in the kitchen, my hand still gripping the edge of the counter for support. The weight of Eleanor's absence pressed down on me like the humid Austin air after a summer storm. At 68, with my Vietnam service medals tucked away in a drawer upstairs, I looked every bit the part of a broken old man on disability, gray hair thinning, back slightly hunched from years of carrying invisible burdens. Our house, a modest two-story colonial on the outskirts of the city, appeared run-down on the surface, peeling paint on the shutters, a sagging front porch, and my beat-up 1970s Ford pickup parked in the driveway, its rust spots earning it pitying glances from neighbors. Derek saw what he wanted to see, a vulnerable widower whose best days were behind him. He didn't know the half of it. That pickup? It was no ordinary rust bucket. I'd restored it meticulously over the years, turning it into a rare collectible model, one of the last unmodified examples from its production run. Valued at over $250,000 by collectors, it sat there like a sleeping giant, waiting for the right moment to roar. And the house? Sure, it needed work, but its location in a rising neighborhood made it worth far more than the $800,000 Derek threw around so casually. But those were just the visible edges of my hidden world. What Derek truly couldn't fathom was my double life. On paper, I was Arthur Hayes, retired veteran living off a modest pension and disability checks from the VA. In reality, I owned a discreet consulting firm called Apex Strategies, tucked away in a nondescript office downtown. For the past 2 decades, since Eleanor and I had bootstrapped it from our garage, I'd been advising tech startups on everything from cybersecurity protocols to scaling operations in the cutthroat Silicon Valley spillover. My clients included up-and-coming AI firms and blockchain innovators, the kind that turned garage ideas into billion-dollar unicorns. I kept it quiet, partly for privacy. Vietnam had taught me the value of staying under the radar, and partly because Eleanor preferred the simple life. "Let them think what they want, Art," she'd say with a wink. "It's our secret." My so-called therapy sessions? They were alibis for high-stakes meetings with executives. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I'd drive that old pickup to what looked like a counselor's office, but inside, I'd negotiate deals that netted my firm 7 figures annually. I'd built a network of contacts, old army buddies turned power players, Silicon Valley venture capitalists, even a few senators who owed me favors from my early days in DC consultations. My net worth? Easily north of $5 million, diversified in stocks, real estate trusts, and that consulting empire. But I lived simply, donating chunks to veterans' causes and funding scholarships in Eleanor's name. Flash didn't suit me, results did. That evening, after Amelia's barb and Derek's declaration, the family gathered in the living room. Olivia, my only daughter, sat on the worn couch, her face pale and drawn. At 35, she was the spitting image of her mother, dark hair, kind eyes that now brimmed with uncertainty. She'd married Derek 5 years ago, drawn to his charm and his fledgling real estate business. I loved her fiercely, but seeing her nod along to his plan twisted something inside me. Derek paced, already sketching out listings on his phone, oblivious to the storm he was brewing. "I won't fight you on this," I said quietly, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "I'll pack a bag and leave by morning. The house is yours to sell." Derek's eyes lit up with triumph, and he clapped me on the shoulder like we'd struck a deal. Olivia hesitated, then murmured, "Dad, are you sure? We can talk about this." But Derek cut her off, promising it was for the best, a fresh start for everyone. As they left that night, Derek's sister Amelia shooting me one last disdainful look from the doorway, I retreated to my study. The room was a time capsule, faded photos of Eleanor and me on our honeymoon in the hill country, shelves lined with what looked like dusty trinkets, brass figurines, engraved plaques. To the untrained eye, they were junk. But those trinkets were actually awards: the Tech Innovator Medal from the Austin Business Journal for pioneering secure data protocols, a Crystal Globe from a cybersecurity conference for thwarting a major hack on a startup client. I downplayed them all, letting the world assume I was just a retired vet tinkering with puzzles. I poured myself a scotch, Eleanor's favorite, neat, and sat at my desk, firing up my encrypted laptop. A quick email to my lead executive confirmed the next therapy session, a virtual pitch to a new AI firm tomorrow. Then I texted my old army buddy, Victor Lang, the venture capitalist from Silicon Valley. "Need you in Austin soon," I wrote. "Family dinner. Bring your checkbook." Victor replied instantly, "On it, Art. What's the play? That promise to leave by morning?" It was a feint, the first move in a chess game Derek didn't even know we were playing. He'd underestimated me, seeing only the surface, the lonely old man in the rundown house. But Vietnam had drilled into me the art of patience and revelation. As I turned off the light, staring at the stars through the window, I felt Eleanor's presence, urging me on. This chain of events would unfold in ways that would leave Derek reeling, forcing him to confront the man he'd tried to discard. And in the process, I'd protect what we'd built, not with anger, but with the quiet power of truth. The next morning dawned bright, the Texas sun filtering through the blinds. I loaded a small suitcase into the pickup, making a show of it for Derek, who arrived early to oversee my departure. Olivia hugged me tightly, whispering apologies, but Derek just nodded curtly, keys to the house already in his pocket. "Smart choice, Arthur," he said. I drove off without a word, heading not to a retirement home, but to my office downtown. There, amid the hum of servers and the click of keyboards, my real life resumed. Calls came in, deals to close, strategies to refine. By noon, I'd wired funds to secure the house's title in a trust Olivia couldn't touch without my say-so. Derek thought he'd won, he had no idea the board was already turning. As the day wore on, I reflected on how it had come to this. Derek's ambition had always blinded him. When Olivia first brought him home, he'd been full of big talk about flipping properties and building an empire. I'd offered advice once, suggesting he diversify beyond real estate, but he'd brushed it off, calling my ideas old man stuff. Now, with his business teetering, rumors of a botched commercial deal had reached even my quiet circles. He saw my home as his lifeline. But lifelines could snap. By evening, I was back at the house under the guise of retrieving forgotten items. Derek let me in, smug as ever, already meeting with a realtor on the phone. I nodded along, gathering a few books, but really, I was assessing the layout, planning the dinner that would change everything. Victor's flight landed that night, he'd arrive hungry and ready to play his part. As I left again, Derek locked the door behind me, sealing his fate without realizing it. The hidden assets, the firm, the network, the worth he'd dismissed, were about to surface, pulling the family into a revelation none of them expected. As I settled into my office chair the morning after my staged departure, the hum of Austin's downtown traffic filtered through the window, a stark contrast to the quiet grief back at the house. At 68, with the weight of Vietnam's lessons still shaping my decisions, I knew desperation when I saw it. Derek's push to sell the house wasn't just greed, it was survival. I'd pieced together the details over quiet calls to mutual contacts in real estate. His business, Derek Realty Partners, had crumbled after a high-stakes deal fell through, a commercial strip mall project in the suburbs that promised millions but delivered lawsuits and liens instead. Investors pulled out when the permit stalled, leaving him with debts piling up like unpaid bills on his desk. Creditors circled, and bankruptcy loomed if he couldn't liquidate something big fast. My $800,000 house, in a neighborhood on the cusp of booming, was his golden ticket out. I leaned back, sipping black coffee from a mug engraved with Eleanor's initials, and reviewed the reports my assistant had compiled overnight. Derek's firm had taken loans against inflated property values, stretching thin to chase that one deal. Now, with the fallout, he faced audits and whispers of irregularities. He hadn't shared any of this with Olivia, of course. To her, he was still the confident husband who'd promised stability after our family's loss. But I saw the cracks, the late nights he'd claimed were networking, the tense phone calls Olivia mentioned in passing. Selling the house would cover his immediate shortfalls, maybe even buy time to rebuild. In his mind, shipping me off to a retirement home was a necessary sacrifice. An old man like me wouldn't miss the comforts. By midday, I'd spoken with my lawyer, ensuring the property trust was ironclad. No sale could proceed without my signature, a detail Derek overlooked in his haste. Then came the harder part, reaching out to Olivia. I texted her, keeping it light. "Thinking of you, kiddo. Coffee tomorrow?" Her reply was quick but strained, "Sure, Dad. Derek's handling things here." Handling things. The word stung, a reminder of how grief had clouded her judgment. That afternoon, Derek ramped up his efforts. He met with a realtor at a coffee shop near my office. I knew because my network included eyes in those circles. The agent, a sharp woman named Carla who'd handled deals for my consulting clients, later tipped me off discreetly. "He's pushing hard, Arthur. Listing photos already staged." Derek had even started packing up Eleanor's old china from the cabinets, as if erasing her presence would speed the process. He saw the house as inventory now, not a home filled with memories of barbecues in the backyard and Olivia's childhood laughter echoing through the halls. But his real desperation showed in how he turned to Olivia. That evening, I drove by the house under the pretense of checking mail. Victor, my buddy, had arrived early and was holed up at a nearby hotel, prepping for the dinner. Through the half-drawn curtains, I saw them in the living room, Derek pacing, Olivia on the couch with a photo album in her lap. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes from nights spent crying over her mother. At 35, she ran a small graphic design business from home, but Eleanor's death had sapped her energy, leaving her vulnerable. Derek knelt beside her, his voice carrying faintly through the cracked window. "Babe, this is for your dad too. That old place is too big for him alone. A retirement community has activities, friends his age. He'll be safer." He painted pictures of sunny facilities with golf courses and communal meals, glossing over the isolation. Olivia hesitated, flipping through photos of Eleanor and me at her wedding. "But Dad loves that house. It's all he has left of Mom." Derek pressed on, his tone shifting to concern laced with urgency. "Exactly. It's dragging him down, holding on to the past. We need to move forward, for all of us. My business is picking up, this sale will help everyone." He didn't mention the debts, the failed deal that had him waking in cold sweats. Instead, he wove in half-truths, how the house's upkeep was straining family resources, how I'd be better off without the burden. Olivia, worn thin by funeral arrangements and her own sorrow, wanted to believe him. She'd always trusted Derek's vision. He was the planner, the one who made their life together feel secure. Grief made her doubt her instincts, and Derek exploited it masterfully. By the end of the conversation, she nodded, tears falling. "You're right. I'll talk to him. It might be kinder this way." I pulled away before they spotted me, my chest tight with a mix of anger and sorrow. Olivia's support wasn't malice, it was manipulation wrapped in care. She'd called me later that night, her voice soft over the phone. "Dad, Derek and I talked. We think the retirement home is best. You deserve peace." I feigned agreement, saying I'd consider it, but inside, it cut deep. My daughter, the light of my life, siding with a man who saw me as expendable. Vietnam had prepared me for betrayal on the battlefield, but this was personal, a wound to the heart. The next day unfolded with Derek's measures intensifying. He scheduled a property appraisal, ignoring the trust clause, and even contacted a moving company for my essentials. His sister Amelia egged him on via texts. I glimpsed them when Olivia left her phone out during our coffee meetup. "Get that old fool out and cash in," one read. Amelia, bitter since her own family's fallout years ago, saw my situation as poetic justice. Derek, emboldened, started fielding offers prematurely, bragging to associates about the quick flip. Olivia met me at the cafe, her hands fidgeting with a napkin. "I didn't want to push, Dad, but Derek's worried about you rattling around alone." She described the home he'd researched, modern, with medical staff on site. I listened, seeing the exhaustion in her posture, the way she avoided my eyes. "Is this really what you think, Liv?" I asked gently. She paused, then affirmed it, manipulated into believing the lie. Unaware of his financial troubles, she saw only a caring husband guiding their future. I hugged her goodbye, promising to think it over, but resolved to act. As the sun set, I coordinated with Victor. "He's digging his own grave," I told him. "Time to show them the man I really am." Derek's desperation had forced Olivia's hand, betraying the bond we'd shared. But mercy would guide me, not revenge. I'd reveal the truth without destruction, giving her a chance to see clearly. The dinner loomed, a turning point where hidden motives would unravel. In the quiet of my office, I sifted through old letters from Eleanor, her words a balm. "Protect our girl, Art. She's got your strength." Olivia's betrayal hurt, but it stemmed from love twisted by deceit. Derek's measures were frantic, but mine were calculated. As I locked up for the night, heading to prepare the house, I knew the chain was tightening. Soon, the full picture would emerge, freeing Olivia from the web he'd spun that I spent the morning before the dinner finalizing details in my study, the same room where Eleanor and I had mapped out our consulting firm's early strategies. At 68, with the scars of Vietnam a distant echo, I moved with purpose, setting the table in the dining room with our best china, the set we'd received as a wedding gift. The house, still smelling faintly of Eleanor's lavender soap, felt alive again with anticipation. Derek thought he controlled the narrative, but tonight, I'd rewrite it. Victor Lang, my old army buddy from basic training, had landed at Austin Bergstrom that afternoon. Now a powerhouse venture capitalist in Silicon Valley, he managed a fund worth hundreds of millions, backing the next wave of tech disruptors. "Art, this dinner sounds like old times, ambush with a side of steak," he joked on the phone. I chuckled, appreciating his steady presence. By late afternoon, I'd stocked the kitchen with groceries, ribeyes from the local butcher, fresh salads, and a bottle of Cabernet from our cellar. No extravagance, just enough to draw them in. I called Olivia to confirm. "Family dinner tonight, 7 p.m. Bring Derek. We need to talk about the house." Her voice wavered. "Dad, are you sure? Derek's excited about the sale." I kept my tone even. "One last meal here. For your mother." That sealed it. Guilt and love pulled her along. They arrived on time, Derek striding in first with a folder of real estate listings under his arm, his smile all business. At 38, he carried himself like a man on the rise, pressed shirt and slacks masking the stress lines around his eyes. Olivia followed, carrying a bottle of wine, her expression a mix of hope and hesitation. Amelia tagged along uninvited, her presence a sour note as she eyed the room like an appraiser. "Nice place to unload," she muttered, settling into a chair. Victor pulled up last, his sleek Tesla humming to a stop in the driveway. He entered with a firm handshake for me, then introductions all around. "Victor Lang, pleasure," he said, his voice booming with that Silicon Valley confidence. Derek sized him up, polite but dismissive, an old vet friend, nothing more. We sat down to eat, the clink of silverware filling the air as I carved the steaks. Conversation started light, Olivia sharing memories of Eleanor's holiday dinners, Victor regaling us with tales of startup pitches gone wild. Derek chimed in with real estate anecdotes, steering toward his agenda. "Arthur, we've got offers coming in already. This neighborhood's hot, could close in weeks." I nodded, passing the potatoes, letting him build his case. Olivia glanced at me apologetically, still under the spell of his manipulations. As dessert, a simple apple pie Eleanor's recipe hit the table. I steered the talk to my hobbies. "Victor and I go way back. Army days. Now he funds the future." Victor leaned in, playing along. "Art here's got an eye for it. Remember that old truck of yours, Art? The pickup?" That's when I dropped the first twist, casual as pouring coffee. "Oh, that beat-up Ford in the driveway?" "Yeah, it's a 1972 F-100 Ranger, one of the last with the original V8 and no modern mods. Collectors pay top dollar for authenticity." Derek snorted into his napkin. "That rust heap? Worth maybe scrap." Victor pulled out his phone, showing a listing from a classic car auction. Similar one sold for $260,000 last month. "Art's is pristine under the patina." Olivia's eyes widened, Amelia shifted uncomfortably. Derek forced a laugh. "Coincidence. Doesn't change the house situation." I let the moment hang, then rose to clear plates, accidentally brushing a shelf in the adjacent living room. A few items tumbled, nothing dramatic, just enough to draw eyes. "Careful with those trinkets," Victor said, picking up a brass plaque. I feigned embarrassment. "Old junk from my so-called retirement projects." But as we gathered them, the truth emerged. That plaque? The Austin Tech Innovation Award for developing a proprietary encryption algorithm that protected a startup's data during a merger. Next to it, a Crystal Award from the Cybersecurity Summit, recognizing my firm's role in averting a multimillion-dollar breach for a client in renewable energy. Olivia gasped, turning the crystal over. "Dad, what is this?" Derek's fork paused mid-air, his face paling as Victor explained. "Your father's not just a vet, he's a silent partner in tech. Apex Strategies? That's his baby. Advised my first big fund on risk assessment." I sat back down, the room thick with surprise. Kept it quiet for privacy. Eleanor liked the simple life. But these aren't trinkets, they're milestones. Amelia muttered something about fakes, but Olivia touched the awards reverently, pieces clicking. "You never told us. All those therapy sessions." The air shifted as Victor pulled out a tablet, projecting a quick slide. "Speaking of," Art mentioned a promising local company. "AI-driven logistics for real estate, ironic, huh?" He nodded at me. "I'm offering seed funding, $2 million to start." "The company?" "My own firm, rebranded for the pitch." Derek's eyes darted, realization dawning. He dismissed me as a drain, blind to the empire I'd built advising the very sector he chased. His business teetered on debts from a failed deal, while I'd quietly thrived, my net worth dwarfing his losses. As coffee circulated, Victor sealed it with a handshake across the table, to me, in full view. Deal, Art. Let's make it official. Olivia beamed, pride flushing her cheeks, but Derek sat frozen, his folder of listings forgotten. He'd cornered me days ago, demanding I leave, seeing only an old man in a rundown house. Now, the pickup's value alone could buy his way out of trouble, and my junk represented innovations worth fortunes. Amelia tried to deflect, joking about hidden treasures, but the mood had turned. Derek realized his underestimate, not just of my assets, but of the network. Victor alone could blacklist him in investor circles with a word. We wrapped up late, Victor clapping Derek on the back with a knowing grin. Families full of surprises. As they left, Olivia hugged me tightly. Dad, I had no idea. Derek mumbled goodnights, his confidence cracked. Driving Victor to his hotel, I reflected on the dinner's success. No raised voices, just revelations peeling back the layers. Derek's desperation had led here, to a table where truths surfaced like cards in a winning hand. Vietnam taught me timing, tonight proved it. The chain of events accelerated, his plans wobbling as the real me emerged. Mercy would follow, but first, accountability. Back home, I cleared the table, Eleanor's pie plate in hand. The awards gleamed under the light, symbols of a life Derek never saw. Olivia texted, "Proud of you, Dad. Talk tomorrow?" I replied yes, knowing the twist had planted seeds of doubt. Derek's world tilted, underestimation his downfall. The next moves would expose more, but I'd guide it with honor, protecting what mattered most, our family. Flawed as it was, the morning after the dinner, sunlight streamed into the kitchen as I brewed coffee, the aroma mixing with the faint scent of last night's pie. At 68, with Vietnam's discipline keeping my mind sharp, I felt a quiet resolve. The family dinner had cracked Derek's facade, but today would shatter it. He'd underestimated me for years, seeing only the veteran on disability in a so-called rundown house. Now, with Victor's investment offer echoing in their minds, the ground shifted. Olivia had called early, her voice laced with awe and questions. "Dad, those awards, how did you keep it all hidden?" I explained briefly, emphasizing the privacy Eleanor and I valued. Derek stayed silent on the line, but I heard his unease in the background shuffle. By noon, the annual Homeowners Association meeting convened at the community center, a modest hall filled with neighbors chatting over coffee and donuts. I'd been a quiet member for decades, paying dues without fanfare, but today I arrived prepared. My briefcase held documents compiled by my firm's legal team, bank statements, loan applications, and forged signatures linking Derek to financial manipulations. His real estate business teetered not just from the failed strip mall deal, but from deeper issues, massive debts from high-interest loans he'd secured by inflating property appraisals. Worse, he'd forged documents to qualify for those loans, using shell companies to hide the risks. Creditors demanded repayment, and without the house sale, bankruptcy was inevitable. Derek strode in confidently, folder in hand, announcing the agenda item, the impending sale of my property. "Neighbors, as many know, Arthur's house is listing soon. It's a great opportunity for a buyer in this growing area." He smiled, positioning himself as the helpful son-in-law facilitating a smooth transition. Olivia sat beside him, still processing the dinner's revelations, her support for the plan waning but not yet broken. Amelia hovered nearby, whispering encouragements. The room murmured approval, the neighborhood valued stability, and a quick sale promised that. I waited my turn, standing slowly when called. "Before we proceed, I'd like to share some context on the house." Murmurs turned to attention as I projected slides on the screen, nothing aggressive. Just facts. First, the trust. This property is held in a family trust one control. No sale can happen without my consent. Derek's face tightened, but he recovered with a chuckle. Legal details, Arthur. We'll sort it. Then came the evidence. I displayed redacted loan documents, highlighting discrepancies. Derek's business has been under strain. Debts exceed $500,000 from a recent project failure. To cover them, he's pursued this sale aggressively. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A neighbor, Tom from down the street who'd dealt with Derek on a rental, leaned forward. Is that why he's been dodging my calls on that lease renewal? I nodded, revealing the forgeries, signatures mimicking investors on loan apps, submitted to banks without disclosure. These manipulations risk not just his firm, but the community's trust in local real estate. Derek stood abruptly. This is slander. Arthur's grasping at straws because he doesn't want to leave. But the room turned, whispers of fraud and check his credentials spread. Olivia's eyes widened in horror, her hand covering her mouth as she scanned the documents I'd passed her way. Unaware until now of the full extent, the hidden debts, the lies that propped up their life together, she looked at Derek with dawning betrayal. He'd manipulated her into supporting the move, framing it as care for me, while chasing his salvation. Amelia tried to intervene, hissing at me, but the association president called for order. Arthur, do you have verification? I did, affidavits from banks confirming the irregularities, plus a preliminary audit from my tech contacts who'd reviewed public records overnight. That's when my network activated. Before the meeting, I'd tipped off key players, tech executives from Apex Strategies, Victor's associates in finance, even a few real estate board members. As I spoke, emails flew, warnings about Derek's practices circulated in investor groups, flagging him as high risk. By the time the meeting adjourned, his phone buzzed incessantly, clients pulling out, lenders freezing accounts. One slide even showed a news alert, local realtor faces fraud probe. My friends had ensured the information spread like wildfire through professional channels, not with malice, but precision. Derek's plans unraveled in real time. The house sale? Dead in the water, with neighbors now questioning his integrity. He'd arrived to announce a windfall, he left isolated, his reputation in tatters. Olivia confronted him quietly in the parking lot, her voice rising. You lied to me, Derek. About everything. He stammered defenses, the deal's collapse, the pressure, but she walked away, heading to my side. Dad, I had no idea. How could he? I placed a hand on her shoulder, the weight of her disillusionment heavy. At 35, she'd built her world around his promises, now it crumbled. As the crowd dispersed, association members approached me with support, one offering to connect with a trusted appraiser if I ever did sell, on my terms. Derek lingered, face ashen, realizing the depth of his miscalculation. He'd seen me as an easy mark, a lonely old man to discard for profit. But my hidden life, the consulting firm, the assets, the connections, had fortified me against such schemes. The evidence wasn't just paper, it was the culmination of years building trust in circles he could only dream of entering. Driving home, Olivia rode with me, silent at first, then pouring out questions. Why didn't you tell us sooner? I explained the value of humility, how Vietnam taught me to let actions speak. She nodded, tears falling, the betrayal sinking in. Derek's manipulations had forced her hand, but truth freed her. His reputation, once his currency, now poisoned every deal. Calls from partners ceased, online profiles flagged warnings. By evening, Victor texted, words out. He's done in this town. I didn't gloat. Mercy lingered in my thoughts, Eleanor's influence, always. But accountability came first. Derek's downfall stemmed from his own desperation, the fraud that tainted his ambitions. As Olivia settled in the guest room, vowing to stay, I reflected on the day's toll. The chain of events, sparked by his ultimatum, led here, plans ruined, truths laid bare. Our family fractured, but reparable. Tomorrow's scandal would seal it, yet I'd navigate with honor, guiding us toward healing. The day after the Homeowners Association meeting, I woke to the sound of rain pattering against the windows of our Austin home, a gentle Texas drizzle that mirrored the storm brewing in our family. At 68, with the discipline of my Vietnam days keeping me grounded, I started the coffee and checked my phone. Olivia had slept in the guest room, her presence a comfort amid the chaos Derek had unleashed. She'd spent the night processing the revelations, the debts, the forgeries, the way he'd twisted her concern for me into a tool for his gain. "I feel so foolish, Dad," she'd whispered before bed. "He made it seem like we were helping you." I reassured her, drawing on Eleanor's wisdom: truth always surfaces, even if it hurts. By mid-morning, the fallout from my presentation spread faster than the rain. Neighbors texted support, and my network, tech executives and real estate contacts, confirmed the information had rippled outward. Derek's phone must have been exploding. I imagined him scrambling, his once polished image cracking under the weight of exposed fraud. But he didn't go quietly. Desperation drove him to a local TV station, Channel 7 News, where he pitched a story framing me as the villain. I learned of it through a tip from a journalist friend, Sarah Klein, who'd covered tech for years and consulted with my firm on data ethics. "He's in the lobby now," she texted. "Accusing you of fraud and corruption to discredit the meeting claims." Derek sat for an interview that afternoon, his face composed but eyes frantic. He spun a tale of family discord, the grieving widower hoarding assets, manipulating documents to cling to the house, even hinting at elder abuse in reverse, me preying on Olivia's grief. "Arthur's not the man he seems," he told the camera, voice steady. "He's hidden wealth while portraying poverty, and now he's slandering my business to avoid reality." It was a bold counterattack, aimed at salvaging his reputation before the fraud whispers solidified. He painted himself as the victimized son-in-law, protecting the family from a secretive veteran gone rogue. The station aired a teaser by Evening News, teasing family feud, hidden fortunes and betrayal in Austin suburbs. Olivia watched it with me in the living room, her face paling as Derek's words filled the screen. "He's lying about you, Dad. How could he?" The betrayal cut deeper now, public and raw. At 35, she'd shared a life with him, building dreams on his assurances. Seeing him twist the narrative, using her name to bolster his case, shattered the last illusions. She called him immediately, but he dodged, claiming it was damage control. I advised her to step back, knowing the truth would prevail without force. The journalists at Channel 7 didn't take his story at face value. Sarah and her team launched their own investigation, cross-referencing my evidence with public records and bank filings. They interviewed neighbors from the meeting, who corroborated the forgeries and Derek's aggressive push for the sale. One lender, off-record at first, confirmed the manipulated loan apps. By late afternoon, the story flipped. Sarah called me for comment, and I provided context calmly: my consulting background, the trust on the house, and how Derek's debts, stemming from the botched strip mall deal, had driven his actions. "I'm no hero," I told her. "Just a father protecting his home and daughter from deception." The full segment aired that night, a bombshell that turned Derek's gambit against him. The anchor introduced it gravely: what started as a family dispute has uncovered a tale of financial fraud and resilience. They detailed the evidence: screenshots of forged documents, expert analysis from a forensic accountant tying Derek to the irregularities. Then came my side, the Vietnam veteran who'd built a quiet tech empire, advising startups while living modestly in honor of his late wife. Clips from the meeting showed Derek's initial confidence crumbling, contrasted with his TV interviews' hollow denials. The narrative shifted to heroism, me as the steadfast patriarch, a man who'd served his country and now defended his legacy against greed. "Arthur Hayes isn't the fraud," Sarah reported. "He's the one exposing it." Derek's accusations backfired, revealing his own web of deceit. They interviewed Olivia briefly. She'd agreed to a short statement: "I trusted him, but the truth about his business and lies has changed everything." Her words, measured and heartbroken, humanized the story, drawing sympathy from viewers. The scandal erupted overnight. Social media lit up with shares, #AustinFraud, #Veteran vs Greed trending locally. Derek's business collapsed under the glare, clients canceled contracts, the real estate board suspended his license pending investigation, and creditors filed suits. Banks froze his accounts, and partners distanced themselves, one public statement calling his practices unethical and illegal. By morning, headlines screamed, "Son-in-law's scam exposed, veteran father fights back." Reporters camped outside his apartment, but he barricaded himself, refusing comment. The personal toll hit hardest. Olivia filed for divorce that week, her lawyer citing irreconcilable differences and financial misrepresentation. "I can't build a life on lies," she told me, packing her things from their shared home. At 38, Derek faced total loss, his firm dissolved, assets seized to cover debts, and isolation from the family he'd tried to dismantle. Amelia, his sister, distanced herself, blaming him for dragging her into the mess. He called Olivia once, pleading for a second chance, but she hung up, the trust irreparably broken. As the rain cleared, I walked the backyard with Olivia, the same paths Eleanor and I had strolled. The media frenzy validated the chain of events, from his ultimatum at her funeral to this public reckoning. Derek's desperate measures, born of a failing empire, led to his undoing. Yet, in the quiet, I felt no triumph, only sorrow for the man who'd chosen deceit over honor. Vietnam had shown me war's costs, this family battle echoed them, but with a chance for redemption. Olivia leaned on my shoulder. "You saved us, Dad." I shook my head. "Truth did. Now we rebuild." The scandal's waves continued, national outlets picked it up as a feel-good underdog story, boosting my firm's visibility ironically. Victor emailed congratulations, offering more support. But for Derek, doors slammed shut, job prospects vanished, his name synonymous with cautionary tale. Total loss, self-inflicted, left him to confront the void. As Olivia settled back into routines, sketching designs in the home that was now truly ours, I pondered the lesson. Strength lay in revelation, not retaliation. The final chapter approached, one of reconciliation, where mercy could mend what fraud had torn. Weeks after the media storm subsided, our Austin home settled into a rhythm of healing. At 68, with Vietnam's lessons on forgiveness guiding me, I watched Olivia reclaim her space. The divorce papers finalized quickly, her graphic design business thriving from the quiet she'd craved. No longer manipulated by Derek's debts and lies, she threw herself into projects, her laughter returning during evening walks in the backyard Eleanor loved. "Dad, this place feels like home again," she said one sunset, linking arms with me. The house, secure in its trust, stood as a testament to the life we'd built, not for sale, but for us. Olivia learned the full truth through our talks, Derek's desperation from the failed deal, the forgeries that nearly ensnared her too. Betrayal stung, but she saw his choices as his burden. "I thought he was our future," she admitted. "But you showed me real strength." I shared stories of Eleanor, how we'd navigated my hidden consulting work with humility. Apex Strategies hummed along, Victor's investment fueling growth, but I kept the focus on family. No gloating, just support as she rebuilt. Derek, meanwhile, hit rock bottom. His business gone, license revoked, he scraped by in a small apartment, jobless and shunned. Amelia cut ties, calling his actions a disgrace. He reached out once to Olivia, a tearful voicemail begging forgiveness. But she deleted it, choosing peace. I could have pressed charges, let the fraud claims bury him deeper. Vietnam bred grudges, but Eleanor taught mercy. Instead, I acted anonymously through a veterans network contact. A discreet tip led to a job offer, entry-level admin at a small real estate firm in Dallas, far from Austin's scrutiny. No fanfare, just a chance to start over, earn honestly. Pay it forward, I told myself, echoing Eleanor's creed. He took it, from what I heard, quiet work, no schemes. Whether he learned or not, that was his path. Our family lesson crystallized: true strength isn't in money or revenge, but honor, dignity, and mercy. Olivia and I hosted a small memorial for Eleanor soon after, toasting her wisdom. The chain of events, from that funeral clash to this renewal, reminded us, underestimation crumbles, but grace endures.